There was some pretty good Marvel Legends this year in 2021, but with the good comes the bad, and of course there were also some pretty bad ones, and those are the ones we're going to be looking at today. This time around, no Marvel Legend is off limits. We're going to be looking at everything that was released in 2021, figuring out which ones were the worst of this year. When we look at the worst Marvel Legends, we really gotta break it down. We gotta look at things like, does the toy actually work? Does it have really obvious blemishes on it? Some of these reveals might surprise you today, but I'm going to provide my reasons for each one, and be sure you stick around until the end for the honorable mentions, as well as our worst Marvel Legend of 2021. The fifth worst Marvel Legend of 2021 was Cyber. I was really taken aback by how wimpy Cyber looked when he was revealed, and I couldn't believe that this was the treatment that an S-tier Wolverine villain was getting, because Wolverine has a set of core villains that really make it in his top 3, top 5, and Cyber is definitely among them. But when we saw this body, I couldn't help but think this doesn't look anything like the Cyber that I know and love, because when I think of Cyber, I think of a guy that is absolutely massive. And I know what Cyber's stats are supposed to be, and people quote them all the time, but that doesn't matter, because in comics, it's all about how he's portrayed. And when Cyber is drawn, more often than not, he's humongous. He's enormous. Not to mention, when you look at Cyber, his head sculpt is really bland and his claws are barely there. You really have to look at the toy to see them, and the rest of him looks like he's just recycled from another toy somewhere. The fourth worst Marvel Legend of 2021 is Shriek. Really, you could take any of the generic women action figures in the Marvel Legends line and put them in this position, but this one really stood out to me because of all the generic Marvel Legends figures. I noticed that Shriek's skin is just painted on her generic body, and it looks really, really cheap. It doesn't even meet a 1990s Toy Biz level of quality, and if that wasn't bad enough, they also don't include any kind of special effect with Shriek. It's very obvious looking at Shriek that they just wanted to save money, and they wanted to fill another slot in the wave. The third worst Marvel Legend of 2021 was Dormammu. Dormammu was a real surprise to me because I did not think that this character would be anywhere near as bad as it was. One of the first things I noticed is that the boots were just falling right off of him. And then I thought it was pretty tacky that when I lifted Dormammu's yellow belt, it became very clear that they were reusing the Red Skull's body in the very same wave. Even all the hands that they included with Dormammu were the same as the Red Skull's hands. And what's Dormammu gonna do with a trigger finger? Dormammu does not use guns. And another thing that really startled me was when I was looking at the black piece that was framing Dormammu's face, there's literally a rubber band holding it in place. And if you take that off, the only thing that holds that black piece in place is a tab below Dormammu's chin. And finally, what's going on with the flames on Dormammu's head? They should be yellow and orange. Why are they the color that they are? But as it is, Dormammu's face kind of gets lost in the mix with the reddish flame that they did choose. The second worst Marvel Legend of 2021 was Venom. I was really surprised by the quality, or lack thereof, of this toy when I first saw him announced. When I first saw Venom, I noticed immediately that his colors were all jacked up. And I really don't want to harp on it too much because it's a given. Not many people realize this, but red oranges don't show up terribly well on computer screens. It's just one of those little things about colors. But the thing that did stick out to me is that the values are very much wrong. When you watch Venom on Spider-Man the Animated Series, there are two sets of colors that are used to depict Venom. And on the first appearance of him, the more iconic appearance, he has a light violet blue and a salmon color that are used for his highlights. Whereas on his second appearance, he has more of a cyan and a red orange. And it's very important to concentrate on that orange because what they used here looks like more of a red on the figure, although it might not be showing up all that well on the computer screen. But the values are still wrong. the blue is too light, the red-orange or red is too dark. In addition, the body is too small. I don't mean that he's not tall enough, I mean he's not jacked enough. He looks tiny compared to Venom on Spider-Man the Animated Series. And while we're on that, why is a character like Venom getting Omega Red's hand-me-downs when it's Venom, an S-tier Spider-Man villain, one of the 3 greatest Spider-Man villains ever? Venom really deserves an entirely new body because he's that special of a character. And speaking of hand-me-downs, one of the things that Venom also got from Omega Red was a couple of giant peg holes in his shoulders. And Hasbro just left those in. What were they thinking? They're just chilling there, clear as day, so wide you could fit a twig in there, and they charged $32 for this figure. $32. But wait, there's more. They also didn't paint on the web shooters on Venom's hands. How do you forget a detail that important? Literally the only good thing about Venom are the head sculpts. That's it. The rest of it just needs to be done over again. It's that bad. Truly, Venom is an embarrassment to the line, and Hasbro should really be ashamed of this one. And now, Soulmates, before we reveal the worst Marvel Legend of 2021, I'd like to take a little bit of time today and reveal the honorable mentions that were almost on the list but didn't quite make it. Our first honorable mention is Stiltman. This one gets the nod because the legs were really uninspired. I was really hoping that the legs would be bendable, but instead, when I opened my Hand Ninja and saw the legs, they were just hollow plastic tubes, and I was so disappointed because I was really looking forward to making Stiltman walk and bending those legs around. It's one of those things you see in the comics a lot, but you really couldn't do it with Stiltman. Our second honorable mention is Nova, a Walgreens exclusive that I almost got, but then I decided against it because I didn't really feel that it was worth the price. When I looked at it, I saw that you didn't even get an extra head with Nova. Instead, he's got a helmet that sits on a base, which is certainly a choice. And then other than that, all you get is a set of extra hands. And looking at his body, he doesn't really have all that much detail on him. Everything is painted on. It's a very generic looking body. And not even the head sculpt is all that exciting, to be honest. It looks pretty eh. Our third honorable mention is Mr. Fantastic. I was really excited for a Fantastic Four wave, but then I saw Mr. Fantastic. We had a few good figures in this wave, only about half of it was any good, and Mr. Fantastic was an immediate disappointment. They included a lab coat, which was actually a really cool touch for Mr. Fantastic, but then they included the salad fingers hands as Mr. Fantastic's stretchy effect, and I cannot understand why Hasbro keeps insisting on including these hands with Mr. Fantastic. They do not look good. They look ridiculous. Our fourth honorable mention is the Hood, a really boring action figure with terrible design. I couldn't believe that when I tried to pose the Hood and play around with him, I could not get him to stand up properly with his cloak. It would just go right off his body the moment I tried to even stand him up. This Hood just would not stay on him at all. Just terrible design. It's really obvious that the Hood is being recycled from a bunch of different parts, and they really needed to redesign the cloak or make an entirely new body, and the head is absolutely ridiculous. Why is the only head that the Hood has a screaming one like this? And our fifth honorable mention of today is Cyclops. Oh boy, this one is a bad one. This one is recycling at its worst, because there's so much wrong with this guy. The hairline is bad. The depiction of the armor pieces on Cyclops' arms is all wrong. His gauntlets look jacked up. The armor doesn't look right. The belt doesn't look right. They don't even get his boots right. And there's a bunch of different depictions of Cyclops' boots from Age of Apocalypse that they could have chosen, but instead they just went with the most generic pate they could possibly find. He's such a terrible Marvel Legend. You can really tell that they were mailing it in the day that this guy was made. They just wanted to get him out the door. And now, the number one worst Marvel Legend of 2021 is the HasLab Sentinel. This toy is one that really took me by surprise because I did not expect to be spending a bunch of time on the Sentinel, but then the knee joint happened. Initially, we just thought that there were no ratchets in the knee joint, which was baffling to me why you wouldn't do that on a toy that is 28 inches high. And so now you got toys that are just falling over willy-nilly, and the solution to that was to open up the knee joint and turn the screw inside, which, if you know anything about engineering, you know that that's eventually going to do some damage. So, good luck with that, I guess. It gets even better, though. I learned later that there are, in fact, ratchets in the HasLab Sentinel's knee joints. They just don't work. For a $350 toy, that is so bad. Well, Soulmates, what do you think the worst Marvel Legends of 2021 were? There were some real stinkers this year, but I want to hear from you what you guys think. Do you agree with the ones that were listed today, or do you have a completely different list? I would love to hear from you. Be sure you post it in the comments. If you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notifications so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. And if you want to hang out with me and my soulmates, I stream live on Twitch Monday through Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back again next year with 2022's worst Marvel Legends, and until then, with love from me to you, bye-bye.